Friday, December 15th. It's holiday season, which means try to be kind. It also means looking forward into the new year, pleasant Christmas time retrospectives, and trying to wrap all three into one piece. Next year, you're going to hear two words all year long. And those words are yield curve. You're going to hear them over and over and over again. Yield curve, yield curve, yield curve, yield curve. And yield curve is the graphic representation of short-term interest rates versus long, and the spread between the two. And the copy nearby has some graphs at the end, charts of history. But the reason the yield curve business is important is every time since the early 1970s and even before, but as far back as we have good data, every time short-term rates rise above long-term rates, which is called an inversion, which is not a serious disease, it's just a mathematical picture of short over long. Every time that happens, we have a recession. We're 7 for 7 since the early 1970s. We've had no inversions without a recession, and every inversion followed by a recession. And today, after the Fed's most recent short-term rate hike, long-term rates didn't move at all. If anything, went down a little bit. Mortgage rates actually got better Wednesday afternoon after the Fed hiked. The spread between short and long-term rates is the narrowest that it's been in 10 years. Oddly enough, just before the beginning of the Great Recession. Another way to describe a yield curve doing what it's doing is flattening. Steep, flat. Flat is the precursor for inversion. Another thing that can happen is, we get very flat, and then all of a sudden long rates go up. And then maybe the Fed keeps going, and then maybe we come up again, which there's a cheerful term known as bulldozing, which is long-term rates don't want to go higher, but the Fed, for whatever reason, thinks that they should go higher to slow down the economy. And that's one of the mechanisms that can lead to a recession. Long-term rates pay attention to inflation more than anything else, and inflation isn't doing anything, nor are wages, which would be a precursor to inflation. Unemployment is way down, which in theory is a precursor to higher wages and therefore inflation, but none of that is happening. But you're going to hear next year, as the yield curve approaches flat and maybe inverting, you're going to hear yield curve over and over and over again. In the copy nearby, I actually set some of it to one line to music. The background music to Chevy Chase's Christmas Vacation is, of course, Here Comes Santa Claus, done by my fellow Okie, Gene Autry. There's more musing about what's taking place, and there's so many different flows of information that some of them I would dismiss. The tax bill is a bad idea. Really, everything in it is a bad idea. It's an unfortunate piece of legislation, maybe the worst tax legislation since America has had taxes. But it's not likely to have much economic effect, so not much effect on housing. Inflation itself has been so low and so steady for so long that it's beginning to make me wonder why we pay attention to it. But next year, yield curve, yield curve, yield curve, yield curve, yield curve. Past the point of nausea. It's all you're going to hear in 2018. So get used to it. Merry Christmas.